Today, in the Gulf states, we feel disappointment and have a bone to pick with the Republic of Egypt. Do you have any reproach or disappointment towards Egypt?
We do have a bone to pick with our brothers in Egypt. I mean, Egypt fights political Islam at home. But in a clear contradiction, it hosts all the political Islam groups that are destroying Sudan right there in Egypt.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Jamal al-Mullah from the UAE. This is Gulf Uncensored, in cooperation with the Arab Strategic Forum. The British novelist George Orwell, author of Animal Farm, has a famous quote. Orwell says, "In a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And this is our only revolution here in Gulf Uncensored. To tell the truth. And today we launch the revolution of facts from our brotherly Sudan. Listen to the story. In the late 80s, and with the National Salvation Front taking power in Sudan, its alliance with the Muslim Brotherhood, and its support for Iraq and Iran against the Gulf states. Also, with Al-Khartoum hosting the leader of what would later be known as the Al-Qaeda organization, Osama bin Laden, who was stripped of his Saudi citizenship. All of this led the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to sense danger. So the kingdom took the appropriate and justified measures at the time, appropriate and justified, in my personal opinion. Of course, to confront the dangerous policies of the al-Bashir regime in the region, Saudi Arabia did what it had the right to do. At that time, it first emphasized the unity of Sudan, but at the same time, it sought to weaken the al-Bashir regime and its Muslim Brotherhood allies. It weakened it by supporting the Sudan People's Liberation Army, led by whom? John Garang. The international press wrote a lot back then about the convoys, the Saudi support convoys for John Garang's movement, which used to set off from Yanbu to the port of Mombasa and then to South Sudan. In the end, it led all of this to exert great pressure on the Muslim Brotherhood in the al-Bashir regime, which brought 4 important results. 1. The deportation of Osama bin Laden, as the Saudis wanted. 2. The handover of Carlos the Jackal, as the French wanted. 3. Moving away from the Iranian axis, as the region wanted. 4. Starting to clip the wings of the Muslim Brotherhood, especially the Atarabi wing, as the world wanted. The Saudi pressure policy succeeded greatly and with flying colors, and today, in the year 2026, we find ourselves not far from the Sudan of 1990. Abdel Fattah al-Burhan's government is allied with the Muslim Brotherhood, the group that has explicitly declared its support for the Iranian position. Al-Burhan, under pressure from the Muslim Brotherhood, took a halfway stance. The commander of the Rapid Support Forces opposing al-Burhan's regime took a clear and explicit stand condemning Iranian aggression against the Gulf states. This is something al-Burhan hasn't been able to do. Now, to be clear and direct, aren't we seeing a new Bashir regime being built by al-Burhan? Shouldn't we handle him with political and strategic professionalism, just as Saudi Arabia did in the 90s? It's the same situation and the same events. So why is the response different now? Has stating historical facts and comparing them to current events really become such a revolutionary and crazy act? Has telling the truth become so costly and rare, even though it's simply history repeating itself? Allahu Akbar. The poet Ahmad bin Abdurrahman Bosnida, may he rest in peace, says, "If you asked of us, we gave, but when we asked, you gave nothing. If you sought us, we came, but when we sought you, you were nowhere. Your grace has reached everyone but me. We did you no wrong, yet you wronged us." I now continue with my guest, His Excellency Dr. Abdalla Hamdok, former Prime Minister of the Republic of Sudan and head of the Sumud Coalition. Please join me in welcoming today's guest. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Jamal. I'm happy to be here. It took some time to arrange, but as the saying goes, better late than never. I sincerely hope this is the start of a wonderful collaboration. I follow your work, the programs, and the very successful interviews you host. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Doctor. Following the coup against your government and the outbreak of civil war between the Rapid Support Forces and Abdel Fattah al-Burhan's government, where do you and your colleagues stand today? Which side do you feel closer to?
Well, we in the Sumud Coalition, which is also known as the Civil Democratic Alliance for the Forces of the Revolution, are currently the largest civil alliance today, comprising various political organizations, unions, professionals, syndicates, civil society, and resistance committees. Sumud is offering, as it has before, a unique model for Sudanese alliances. Previously, all our alliances were built solely around political parties. Sumud is a broad alliance that represents a new approach. This coalition of ours is built on the eternal slogan of the revolution, the December 2018 revolution: freedom, peace, and justice. We strive and extend our hand to all the vital forces in our society. We don't claim to be the only faction, but we represent the largest independent civil coalition existing today in Sudan. We deal with complete transparency and flexibility with all the forces of our people. Whoever wishes to join Sumud is most welcome. Whoever wishes to work with us and coordinate on issues, understandings, and so on is most welcome. Our entire focus today is to build a broad civil coalition, a front against the war and for peace.
Some people say there's a common narrative in Sudan that anyone who chooses to stand against Abdel Fattah al-Burhan is with Hamidati. What's your take?
Well, of course, this is a deliberate distortion of Sumud's positions. We stood against this war from the very first day. Actually, even a day before it broke out, we've consistently called for the need to stop this cursed war. This narrative stems from the fact that at the end of the first year, in 2023, we reached out to the leadership of the Rapid Support Forces and the army leadership, Hamidati and al-Burhan. And we asked them to meet, the three of us, either individually or together, to address the issue of the war in Sudan. The leadership of the Rapid Support Forces, to their credit, responded very quickly, and we met with them in Addis Ababa at the beginning of 2024, signing what is known as the Addis Ababa Declaration. The army leadership refused to attend the meeting and has refused to meet with us to this day. That's why this narrative is being promoted, that we're with the Rapid Support Forces. The RSF deserves credit for coming, agreeing with us, and moving forward. I believe this document is available. The Addis Ababa Declaration establishes the principles for ending this war. Had the army leadership responded at that time, it would have spared us the evils of destruction and the loss of lives. And you know the numbers better than anyone. Nearly 15 million displaced people, 4 million refugees, and more than 200,000 lives lost in this war. In addition to the destruction of facilities and infrastructure, both private and public and so on, we could have avoided all of that.
When was the last time you were in contact with General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan?
It hasn't been recently. I believe it was around the beginning of 2024.
So there was an attempt to open a dialogue, but things didn't work out.
We've consistently maintained that we are ready to meet with both sides of the conflict. Constantly. However, it's the military side that remains stubborn about not meeting with anyone. On the contrary, Jamal, today we are being tried in Port Sudan on charges of high treason, undermining the regime, and so on. And the only crime we've committed is calling for an end to this war that has destroyed our country.
Your Excellency, if you'll allow me to go back in time a bit, I'm just eager to ask one question. Is it true that things were going well during your government's time? And that the international community intended to cancel the debts? But then, a month later, the coup happened, everything stopped, and once again, Sudan entered this downward spiral. So, were things going well, or am I mistaken?
Oh, absolutely, Jamal. Sudan was recovering and starting to rejoin the regional and international community. Before the coup, which happened on October 25th, there was a meeting arranged in Paris through the Paris Club to forgive half of Sudan's debt at that time. And then a year later, they were going to forgive the remaining portion, which was about 50 billion out of a debt totaling nearly 60 billion. All of that vanished with the coup, and we returned to a point worse than before, complete international isolation. A total break from international financial institutions like the World Bank, the IMF, and the African Development Bank. And you can apply that to all regional and international organizations. The coup destroyed all the achievements of the transitional period. Sudan had returned as an active player in the regional and international arena.
I mean, today, after the Iranian aggression against the Gulf states, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan issued a very weak statement, a weak stance. And the Muslim Brotherhood, allied with al-Burhan's government, took a position that was essentially supporting Iran against the Gulf states. This is truly a huge shock. Honestly, I did not expect this at all. So, what is your assessment of such a position? I mean, why do you think that is?
My brother Jamal, we have always been steadfast together. On the very first day the war broke out, we issued a very clear and comprehensive statement strongly condemning Iran's brutal aggression against the Gulf countries, and Jordan, and even countries further away in regions like Turkey,
Azerbaijan and so on.
Azerbaijan, and so forth. Our position is absolutely clear, firmly based on the necessity of fully respecting international humanitarian law, not targeting civilians, civilian objects, or any kind of infrastructure. Iran attacked neighbors who, until the war broke out, were working diligently and actively, and you and I have been following this activity on the need to avoid conflict and the necessity of resolving these issues through diplomacy. That did not happen. Therefore, we condemn this matter. And you see, for us in Sudan, this position is built on fraternal and brotherly ties and historical relations. The Gulf country, that's why I'm surprised by the position of the Port Sudan government or the Port Sudan group. The Gulf countries have hosted millions of Sudanese for decades. They are there being hosted, and they live here among their own people with total comfort and hospitality. Also, the Gulf countries welcomed all the displaced people uprooted by the war. So, I mean, the very least expected of us as Sudanese is to stand with the Gulf countries and in their legitimate right to defend their sovereignty and to stand against these violations by all available means.
Well, Your Excellency, now that the Muslim Brotherhood in Sudan has been added to the United States terrorism list, how will that reflect on General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan's position? They used to deny that they were even present. I mean, there was a denial in the official narrative that the Muslim Brotherhood had any role in the government.
Jamal, for us in Sudan, of course, this matter is completely understood by us. The Sudanese people have classified the political Islam group, the Islamic movement, and its party, the National Congress, as a terrorist group. And during the transitional period, the National Congress Party was dissolved by law. We in Sudan know exactly what this group has done in terms of destroying political life in Sudan. From seizing control of the army, security, the economy, and the civil service, they destroyed the entire heritage. Sudan is a rich country. With tolerance, political culture, and multiple parties and so on, it imposed a unilateral model based on building a state that relies on the control of this party. And that is why we, in the revolution, initiated the battle to dismantle the party state in favor of the nation state.
The future. I mean, the clashes are ongoing, the war continues, and the two sides have not reached an agreement. Where are we headed? What is the solution?
Look, we have been repeating since the beginning of this war that there will be no military solution to this crisis. Therefore, we must move forward toward meaningful negotiations leading to mutual understandings that put a lasting end to this war. We restore the civil democratic system in our country through three separate, closely interconnected tracks: stopping the ceasefire, protecting civilians, and providing humanitarian aid. And a political track that arranges for a Sudanese dialogue that excludes no one except those who ruined political life from the Islamic movement and its fronts, and thus we reach an understanding. And Sudan is very rich in creating not just alliances, but transitional forms. We achieved a transition in October 64, in April 85, and in December. Therefore, we have a very rich experience in forms, the Roundtable Conference, the Sudanese dialogue, and it is available. In this context, we must commend all the efforts that were made in the past to address this crisis. But the initiative that we can say has the potential to address this Sudanese crisis is the Quartet Initiative, which was proposed by the United States, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. I believe that through coordinated and sustained work with the Quintet, which includes the United Nations, the African Union, IGAD, the Arab League, and the European Union, as well as with the involvement of some other countries, it can help create an effective approach to resolve this conflict through negotiation.
In your view, do you think Abdel Fattah al-Burhan will, in your opinion, abandon the Islamists?
Look at the options available to Sudan today. Either we, as Sudanese, agree together to create a civil and democratic system that truly opens the door to a stable Sudan, one that is at peace with itself, at peace with its neighbors, and active in the region and the international sphere. Or we move towards imposing the dark options that have brought us nothing but destruction, and the destruction of a country that could have been one of the richest and most beautiful in the world.
Is partition possible, Your Excellency? The partition of Sudan? I mean, there was a project proposed by the commander of the Rapid Support Forces, a parallel government. Was that, the beginning of a partition project? Have you spoken with Hmiti?
I don't think so, because everything we hear, what's written in our dialogues, our communication with the leadership of Sumud, we have never heard them calling for secession or the establishment of a separate entity. There is a lot of talk in many circles about the Libyan model and so on. Sudan is a complex country with many challenges, ethnic, geographical, historical, and so forth. There is no experience. And look, no two countries are identical. Every country has its own specificity. In Sudan, this model doesn't work for us. I believe the vast majority of Sudanese are for the unity of Sudan and for a stable, united Sudan at peace with itself, and a Sudan that can be a force for supporting all that is good in our region and the world.
What is your message to the Arab governments that do not join hands with the civilians?
Look, ultimately, of course, as everyone knows, this important choice is left to the Sudanese people themselves. They are truly the primary decision makers in this matter. But the future of Sudan is, in fact, in the hands of the civil forces. This year marks a significant milestone as we are reaching 70 years since our nation first gained its independence. Out of those 70 years, more than 60 years, almost 6 full decades, were spent under the control and authority of military rule. What does that really mean for us, for our country, and for our people? What has it achieved besides ruin, destruction, civil wars, isolation, and so on? Therefore, Sudan's future remains in the hands of civil forces, which are committed to the country's unity and stability, and to strong distinguished relations with neighbors both near and far.
I'll conclude with a direct question. If you have a message, I've actually sat with a large number of Sudanese friends and acquaintances, some of whom say, "My friend, I stand with the Sudanese army because it's the national army." I mean, this is a common sentiment among a segment of Sudanese people. How do you respond to an argument like that?
Well, Jamal, Sudanese state institutions over the last 30-some years have been completely hijacked by political Islam groups, the Islamic movement. Consequently, we hope for a national army, an independent one that preserves the country's unity, its borders, and so on, without interfering in the economy or politics. But that doesn't exist. This argument is refuted. Until we achieve such an army, this one remains hijacked. That's the issue, you see.
I mean, to what extent have Islamists infiltrated the Sudanese army? Is it possible they have significant control over the army's forces?
The coup that brought the Islamists to power, in which they overthrew a democratic system back in 1989, actually persisted for a full 30 years. The military academy, as well as all other institutions, have been consistently graduating committed Islamists and so on. And this isn't just me talking. This is available and present in all, institutions, agencies, scientific research centers, and so forth. I mean, we're not just making things up. This is a plain reality, you see.
Well, Doctor, do you see the current Iranian regime and its policies as a real threat? I mean, can this regime be contained or must it be removed?
Well, it's good that we didn't overlook this question. Iran's regional policies, we could say that they play a truly pivotal and highly significant role in creating an environment of instability throughout the region. This is achieved through a variety of different tools, including both military and ideological means, as well as by establishing parallel entities within states. This particular approach actually helps to significantly prolong the overall duration of internal conflicts within nations undermine the strength of the national state, and there are numerous examples of this, from Iraq to Syria to Lebanon to Yemen and Sudan. We in Sudan have suffered the most from the consequences of this particular model. The experience of the Islamists in Sudan, which lasted for more than 30 years, 35, and it's still going. I mean, it's a literal copy of the Iranian experience in terms of creating parallel organizations, popular mobilization, popular defense, weakening the national institution and creating parallel entities. This was done in the civil service, in the army, in the police, in security, and so on. As Sudanese, no one needs to tell us or talk to us about the downsides of this experience in destroying the internal structure and prolonging conflicts. Therefore, in my estimation, we hope that the Iranian regime reaches a stage of reconciliation with this region, and the issue of creating parallel entities and the formations and blocks affiliated with it stops, and it creates a ground for peaceful coexistence and respect for good neighborliness. People moving in a direction of respecting our differences, diversity, and plurality. Historically, this model based on exporting the revolution and creating similar models failed. The Soviet Union failed. So there's no reason for us to prolong, the duration of conflicts in the region based on the idea that we can create forms in this sense.
Were you surprised by the position of the Islamist factions in Sudan supporting the Iranian aggression? Was it surprising or normal?
Not at all, no. It's actually, as I told you, it's, as the English say, a copycat, a model we already have, transferred from there, whether in the security apparatus or the parallel apparatus and so on and so on. It's all the same experience. There was no surprise at all.
Today, in the Gulf states, we have some upset and a grievance with the Republic of Egypt. Do you have a grievance or are you upset with Egypt, Dr. Abdalla?
Look, we in Sudan, and then, God blessed us with a geographical location where we neighbor 7 countries, including Egypt, Libya, Chad, Central Africa, South Sudan, who are our brothers who were with us, Ethiopia and Eritrea. And across the Red Sea, Saudi Arabia and Egypt are with us, especially Egypt. Our ties of neighborhood and history, in neighborly relations. No one can just pick up their land and move it somewhere else, you see? So there's an interconnection. We are bound by history, the present and the future. However, challenges and issues remain. I spoke about these when I was in government. You can refer to a published interview at the Al-Ahram Center where we discussed the Egyptian-Sudanese relationship, the unspoken issues within it, and how to resolve them in a way that maximizes commonalities and addresses our mutual challenges. There remain many issues where we have grievances with our brothers in Egypt. For instance, Egypt fights political Islam at home, yet in a clear contradiction, it hosts all the political Islamist groups that are destroying Sudan right there in Egypt. And this isn't just talk for the media. We've cooperated with them a lot, and we hope that after this cursed war, whether in the Gulf or in Sudan, the voice of reason prevails so we can reach a win-win formula that maximizes the common ground between us and Egypt.
When you were the Prime Minister of Sudan, you visited Cairo and met with His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. What did you say to him?
I have visited Egypt several times in the past, and as I mentioned to you before, our relationship with Egypt is truly a historical one. This relationship is built on many shared issues and deep historical ties that have developed over the years. These ties include a range of important aspects, such as cultural connections and mutual interests, which have helped to strengthen the bond between our countries over time.
What did you tell him and what did he tell you? Was the meeting good, productive, or did you not agree on anything?
Yes, in all the interactions and meetings that took place between us and the Egyptian leadership, the meetings were characterized by a great deal of mutual respect and so forth. However, contentious issues remain between us, and we address them through dialogue.
I see. Well, thank you, Your Excellency Dr. Abdalla Hamdok, former Prime Minister of Sudan and head of the Sumud Coalition. You've been most generous. It was an honor to have you.
Thank you, Jamal.
May God protect you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks to all our viewers and listeners. Always follow us on Arabcast.ae social media platforms. Please accept my regards. I am your brother, Jamal Al-Mullah. Goodbye.